Oh, this is going to be fun. Mr. Hibbard, James Hibbard of Entertainment Weekly, a major shill for Benioff and Weiss, just put out a book. But apparently this man has reported too well, it seems. And his book shares many details about Game of Thrones that are very candid and are very, very incriminating regarding his bosses. We're going to piece through it on stream, and we will go back to Bellin next week. But we want to do the preface and the first chapter this week. But first, allow me to bring in my wonderful analytical guests. Please welcome first.
This cannot be.
How anyone can defend the decisions these two made is an impossible task. All you'll end up doing is making yourself look worse, and in return, in this case, a scenario, making the writers look worse.
All right. And please welcome.
The bar is so low with these two that it's very hard to make them look good.
Yeah.
Funny, you think there is a bar in the first place.
Well, I'm trying to be optimistic and polite. So, and if I don't try, I'm gonna forget, and the filter between my mouth and my brain is gonna disappear. And it took a lot of work to put it there, so no, I do not want it to disappear.
Understandable.
Yep. And one last guest. Please welcome our resident Mecha Man.
He's going right for the crew!
Everybody, as the Game of Thrones uninitiated, I will be your control subject today.
What was that? Was that even a
What was
sentence?
saying?
Were you speaking even English?
Maybe. I woke up 15 minutes ago.
That's okay. Thanks for hopping on, my friend. Thanks for hopping on. I appreciate it.
Dakota Char.
I imagine. I hope there will be some glorious stupid.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
maybe.
Remember the person who wrote this again?
Let's see. James
Hello,
Hibbard.
Valerian.
Okay, James, listen, to quote Char, I came here to laugh at you.
Yes, we did come here to laugh at you.
Yeah, his name is James Hibbard of Entertainment Weekly. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to alternate pages on this thing. You're going to have to blow up the screen, but not literally, figuratively, of course.
I've already got it on full screen.
Oh, wait.
Alright.
And I've got it on
sorry,
my huge monitor, too, to make sure that I can read it properly.
Thank you for clarifying, too. I was about to go Michael Bay on the screen. Well, for all we know, it's not even English.
Alright.
I'm not even saying. I bet that's not even a language on Earth.
Alrighty. So, the preface. Finding Westeros. Hundreds of men are screaming. The armored soldiers charge forward, howling with rage, their swords and shields clashing, their boots struggling for purchase in the thick mud. Slowly, agonizingly, some of the fighters are pushed back against a looming tower of corpses. The body pile is a mixture of slain men and horses, gorily intertwined in some gothic rendition of hell. In the distance, flayed men and burnt-on corpses. "You are dying," yells an assistant director. "That's the main thing to remember. You are dying." It's October 2014. There are 600 crew members, 500 actors, and 70 horses in the film Battle of the Bastards.
70 horses.
We've already been over this, but it's
Did you
wait,
play
the
the
Bastards?
when it's brought
No, Battle of the Bastards wouldn't happen until like 20. This is a year. Wait, oh, sorry. Wrong.
Film.
This is
Never mind
film.
myself. Sorry. Bimini right here. I kind of.
Did they inflate the number? Because I swear it was 50 horses.
No, it's 70.
So was it actually 70, or is this author
It was
just
70.
embellishing?
It's
No,
70.
that it was 70.
It
They
was
wanted-
70? Okay.
Yeah, it's also that's also corroborated by Miguel Sapochnik's remarks in an interview with Entertainment Weekly,
Yeah,
like a year
Dragon
after.
Demands went over it.
Yeah,
There were this many horses.
yeah, yeah.
At the center of the mayhem is Kit.
Harrington. No, you can keep reading, Wolf.
All right.
Read
Please.
to. Okay, go for it.
You could. Okay, tell me to where.
Uh,
Who plays?
about to the bar in the middle.
All right. At the center of the mayhem is Kit Harington, who plays the reluctant hero Jon Snow. He's been fighting Bolton soldiers for days, furiously swinging a hefty broadsword at one attacker after another. During one take, he performs a dozen intricately choreographed strikes that he has drilled perfectly into his muscle memory. Well, almost perfectly. Harrington suddenly gets knocked down into the field's boggy, mud-like soup. Weeks of battle filming had transformed the soil into a foul mix of dirt, horse manure, urine, fake snow, sweat, saliva, and bugs. The star gets wearily back on to his feet. Become an actor, they said. Harrington groans. Think of all the fame and glory, they said.
Yeah, and also, like, from what we understand of what happened during the Battle of the Bastards from Miguel Sapochnik's interview, they wasted a lot of time on this battle when they could have just used a set. They wanted those dang horses to do something that legally they were not allowed to do.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly happy about the fact that's horse manure.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The book kind of,
Yeah, the
because
horse expert. Oh, that was rotten. If you
Yeah.
have animal experts, you listen to them when they tell you that is what you're asking is impossible.
your turn, Neph.
All right. Watching this battlefield spectacle from the sidelines, I marveled at the audacity of making Game of Thrones. My journey with the HBO drama series had begun years earlier when I accepted a routine assignment in George R.R. Martin's novels. In George R.R. Martin's novels, the smallest decision in a character's life can have the greatest consequences, but back on November 11th, 2008, I had never heard of him. I was a senior writer working for The Hollywood Reporter when I interviewed a pair of first-time showrunners, David Benioff and Dan Weiss. HBO had just greenlit the duo's pilot based on Martin's books, and the show was an adult fantasy drama? What? You mean like Lord of the Rings? No, not like Lord of the Rings. Benioff and Weiss explained. No wizards, no elves, no dwarves. Well, maybe one dwarf. It's not a story with a million orcs charging across the plains, Weiss said. Well, Benioff added, high fantasy has never been done on TV before. X to doubt. And if anyone
pretty
can
sure
do
that-
it, it's HBO. They've taken tired genres and reinvigorated them. Mobsters in The Sopranos and westerns with Deadwood. My resulting story was utterly routine. The headline, HBO Conjuring Fantasy Series, didn't even include the title Game of Thrones. The idea that TV's most prestigious Emmy-winning network would take a crazy gamble on an expensive fantasy show for grown-ups was considered the most newsworthy hook. And that should have been the end of it, my Game of Thrones journey. But Benioff and Weiss's intriguing description of Martin's story stuck in my head. I bought a copy of the first A Song of Ice and Fire novel. A Game of Thrones, like countless others, I fell headlong into Martin's daringly original world within a few weeks. I finished the third book in his saga, Storm of Swords, which was the most exciting and horrifying stretch of page-turning twists and turns I had ever read.
Okay, so fairly okay, but one of the things high fantasy has kind of been done. It's called Legend of the Seeker. It admittedly isn't that good, but it has been done.
That's why I said X to doubt.
Yeah, it's
Also a pretty short game. Is it Game of Thrones medieval fantasy?
it's like low dark fantasy.
Yeah, like what are the heights of fantasy? What's the difference between high, low, and this is literally the first time I've heard of middle fantasy. What's the difference?
High fantasy is everything Lord of the Rings.
It's
So there are
basically just
mythical-
a
Big
different
scale,
one.
high concept.
Basically, epic fantasy, the only definition is it's in a world that is not like our own and there are no connections to it.
The only seemingly connection would be that there are humans, and that's it.
Yep. Low
This-
fantasy would be fantasy in our world.
Okay. So the height in terms of this analogy is like low fantasy is more urban fantasy.
Pretty much, yeah.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
This Capillarian, I don't know what's the person that mentioned the horse manure.
Yeah.
I can just feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
High fantasy on television. I think like Legend of the Seeker and Hercules and Xena are technically like the main like fantasy shows.
Yeah, I'd call Hercules and Xena middle fantasy because they're myths and they take place in what is supposed to be our history.
Merlin,
In my
I think-
day, we had Merlin, White Stallion, or something like that. Monkey.
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 It did abandon humanity. Embrace monk.
Alrighty. Drake, your turn.
Okay, so taking it from the top.
Yep.
I began obsessively covering the progress of HBO's pilot. Colleagues would ask, why do you write so much about that one show? I would reply, because if they can pull off adapting the books, and I don't think anybody can, it will change television. By the time the first season of Game of Thrones premiered in 2011, I had moved to Entertainment Weekly, where I embarked on a series of annual visits to the throne set. I was in the desert when Daenerys stood outside the gates of Karth, I guess, bared witness to Sansa and Tyrion's awkward wedding, watched Joffrey suffer his well-deserved demise, was among the crowd for Cersei's Walk of Shame, trekked on a frozen lake during Jon Snow's quest beyond the Wall, and paced Winterfell's ramparts during the climactic Long Night.
No, he wasn't on
Climactic.
top of being a reporter.
Ugh. Yeah, what a climax, am I right, guys?
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Where the Deus Ex Machina comes shrieking out of the ether to stab dude in the chest with a
He's
Dragonfire forged knife, even though Dragonfire had barely hurt him a few minutes earlier. Yeah. Keep going. I just had to pause with that one.
Okay, I also question, why are the italics, why aren't the quotes in quotations? And why are they italics? That's such a stupid way to do that.
That's not how it's done usually, I don't think.
Is that, so that's
No.
not really a thing.
Wait, hang on. Can you go back like maybe 2 pages? I want to look at something.
Sure. What exactly?
Because I'm pretty sure he did this correctly not a long while ago.
Oh, okay.
There,
Yeah, he did.
right there.
Yeah, he did. That's weird. Maybe it's like thought bubbles, I guess?
But thought bubbles only work when you are writing a comic.
Look,
I
right
don't
here.
know.
Once more, he got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that just means if you're quoting somebody and they make an emphasis on something, you can't emphasize it again. That's what. That is such an awkward way to do that. I only use that for like a character's internal thoughts if they absolutely have to be spelled out.
Well, that's what I do when I have characters using telepathy is I italicize everything, including the quotation marks, and if I have them emphasize something, I take the italics off what they are emphasizing. But that's not what this is. Oh my god, this is so dumb.
Anyway, back to getting fired cannot kill a dingus.
Yeah. Indeed.
So, okay.
Over the years.
Over the years, I grew to admire the cast and crew's dedication to making the best possible show. Anybody?
Benny,
It was a good show for
They
the
have
first 4 years, but then it got bad.
Yeah, they were doing their best. It's too bad Benioff is a
idiot.
word that I do not dare speak on air.
Dumbass.
No, I'm thinking something much worse, actually.
He's a trust fund dilettante, weasel-faced brat.
Yes, thank you.
I feel no shame in saying that, since it's an accurate physical description, it's an accurate economic description.
I think Confused Matthew has a word for this guy. Simba.
No, more accurate would probably be calling him Joffrey.
Well, technically, in Matthew's eyes, Joffrey does equal Simba.
Well, the thing is, Joffrey is like I don't give this guy the benefit of calling him a sociopath. He's not smart enough to be a sociopath.
He's not smart enough to be a psychopath either.
Well,
he's also not a good enough liar. He's a really terrible liar. He has a lot of tells.
People continuously point this out that everyone's like, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying. He has to get Sansa in, his mother has to get Sansa in just to make him seem innocent.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. A commitment
that often resulted in outright suffering. We're so accustomed. Wait, did I read?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be damned. That was what it said. We're so accustomed to seeing life on movie and TV sets depicted as soft and easy.
No. No.
X.
X. X. X. X. X. X. X. X. X. X.
Okay, let's.
Out in the chat.
That's what the writers of The Simpsons thought in the 80s.
In the 80s.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, sir. Batwoman.
Also, like in Game of Thrones, like they suffered because of the incompetence of the dudes running it. Like, this is insane.
Hashtag.
It's insane that they chose to do a lot of these nutty things.
Especially when they decided to put in filler instead of just using the material from the books. And then they decided to smash books 4 and 5 into one season when they could have gotten 2 seasons at least out of both books each.
And now the mangaka's never going to catch up. I don't think he wants to.
Nope.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, soft and easy. Stars lounging between takes in posh RVs. Directors riding around in golf carts on sunny studio backlots. A cast of heroes filming against a green screen backdrop for computer animators to later insert them into fabrications of harsh environments and deadly peril.
No!
What do you think life was like before this animation?
Also, here's a giant problem. This is later in the show, technically. There's also the issue of this show created needless suffering for the crew just as much as the cast.
The baby.
Yeah, the baby. That's an example.
The baby.
As well as the extra what?
Other AIM reference.
Yeah. The
Baby.
Would someone please think of the children? And this is the only time I use this unironically because that child is going to have problems growing up now.
Yeah. Or like just the simple fact that this kid is like and as well as what else? Like the crew for the Battle of the Bastards and the crew who was forced to work on Dorne like last minute. And it because they decided to insert it after the writing season was done.
Yeah, no, that's not what you do.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
The glamorous and comfortable vision of the entertainment world does exist if you're on a big budget production in Hollywood filming on a major studio lot. That was never Thrones. The show was unlike any production film or television I have ever seen, splice, I have ever seen before or since. Working on Thrones was being wet and freezing for 11 hours, night after night, week after week, and learning to accept that sometimes you were going to be utterly miserable in order to get a shot just right.
A problem with that is they don't get the shots right. They just shove the camera right in the actors' faces.
Yeah, and they don't give any indication of what they're emoting for. Because it's emoting, it's not acting. Ugh.
Yeah. I'll start reading. But yeah, that's wow. This is mesmeric. This is just like wow. It's like Game of Thrones wasn't so bad, you guys. It was really hard.
God, these people can't
hell.
have any. The actors can't have any fun because they're being written to be themselves instead of the people who are in the books.
Yeah.
And that's not fun.
No, they're just, and I think that like at least like some of the actors like Nikolai Castorwaldo said I fought with them over certain decisions and they just patted me on the head and said go to your corner.
Yeah, I bet they did that to a lot of people. What's her face that did? What was it, Cersei?
I think that they probably just they just wanted her to just stare out a window in the last season.
Oh my god.
Alrighty. Thrones was being 6'6" Rory McCann, an actor made even bigger by his character's heavy boots and heavy costume and boots, whose only way to rest after shooting an exhausting action sequence was curl up on the floor of a tiny utilitarian trailer, his voice face half covered in suffocating latex, a space heater making the drafty caravan either too hot or too cold. That's
horrifying.
That's not okay. And also, like, if you look at the takes in between, like on the behind the scenes, he's nearly passing out, like between takes.
Yeah, no, you're supposed to take better care of your actors like that.
Yeah,
They can look like that when they're on the set because, they're supposed to, quote unquote, get hurt during the battles. But the moment they walk off the set, they should be able to breathe as easily as
Well, breathing.
Yeah, they should be able to breathe. They should be able to sit down in a chair, have a drink, instead of going to their trailer that has nothing in it and curl up in front of a space heater to get warm again.
Yeah. And while the production sometimes relied on green screen, more often Thrones actors worked in wholly immersive sets that made you feel like you had literally been transported into another world. By the time the show concluded in 2019, I had written hundreds of stories covering the series. Most of them shills.
Yes!
Most of them shill pieces.
Oh
Pretty much all of them shill pieces, because you literally admitted that David Benioff said to you, well, I'm going to be lying to HBO about the budget because however, for the final season, however, they'll be so invested in the show that they won't have any other choice but to give me however much money I want. And they ended up wasting it. So, yeah, you have no integrity, dude. You don't even have
none whatsoever.
To your bosses. You don't even have loyalty to your bosses. You're a quisling, a despicable little quisling who has no integrity at all.
All journalists hardly had any integrity these days.
No, they really don't.
Thankfully, Dragon Demands has some integrity.
But he's not a mainstream reporter.
True. He's a YouTuber who... yeah. And YouTubers are better at reporting news than most sites are.
Get the legacy media.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Yet there was much to the making of Game of Thrones that was left untold. What was Benioff and Weiss's first fateful meeting with Martin really like? What went down during the filming of the show's unaired original pilot? How did Thrones pull off its first major battle in season 2? What happened with the Dorne storyline? We know what happened with the Dorne storyline.
Okay,
have we gone over that video yet?
Nope, we have not.
Okay, so next time we take a break from Belland, I suggest we do that one.
It's 4 hours long.
I fail to see the issue.
Well, at least it'll give us something else to do.
True.
Don't I fail to see the issue of a 4-hour video?
True. Well, it's 2 parts, but one is like the story thing, and the other one's the production thing.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll keep it short, but basically what they wanted was to show off Indira Varma in a vanity project, and they did it impulsively at the suggestion of their lackey Cogman. Suggested, hey, why don't we just have a cameo plot of Dorne, just to kind of show it and maybe do it another time? And they were like, oh my gosh, that sounds great, we'll have Indira Varma. And he's like, okay. And then like they wrote it, and then impulsively after the writing season was done, they hastily inserted it, making it so that it was a nightmare on the costumer, the choreographers, and they found a way
to... When you do something like that, you're supposed to give everyone, I believe, at least a
heads up,
couple weeks to a month heads up.
Yeah, and they just did it, and it's and just like they filmed it in an UNESCO World Heritage Site without like any idea of how exactly that would constrict filmmaking, because you could have easily recreated these sets in a
studio.
In a studio, yeah.
I mean,
However,
I understand having to go there so that they can figure out what the set is supposed to look like, but using the actual place instead of rebuilding it so you can move walls around however you need to so that you can get the right camera angles? No, that's stupid.
Oh, is that why Game of Thrones always looks so dim?
Kind of, yeah. They always use natural lighting. They didn't light it properly. That's actually something that they go into later of why the show the lighting looks terrible. It's because it was a deliberate choice from David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, unlike Lord of the Rings in the Battle of Helm's Deep, where you can see pretty much everything perfectly, I'd say.
Because they use proper lighting.
Yep.
And it's like in the way they wrote it, it was a thunderstorm. So the idea is you could plausibly see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, even like then, it's like they have like really, really bright moonlight even before the thunder happens. So, okay, and we'll do that. Why did the showrunners decide to end the series after 8 seasons? They were lazy and wanted Star Wars money. That's it.
But they didn't, which they didn't get because they were stupid and opened their freaking mouths.
What were those grueling 55 consecutive nights filming The Long Night really like?
You
I meant
really want
Yeah. Wow. And hey, why didn't Lady Stoneheart ever show up? Yes, why did this integral character in the books never show up? Oh wait, I know, you wanted to appeal to NFL players and stay-at-home moms and not appeal to actual fantasy fans and cut out as many fantasy elements as you could. Bravo.
Okay, what was that?
What?
What was that about? That character that you just mentioned wasn't in the show or something?
Nope. Basically what happens is, spoilers to anybody who has not seen it, but essentially Catelyn Stark
gets resurrected.
She gets resurrected. And this is her as a vengeful zombie type character who starts killing Freys all across the river, her murderers all across the Riverlands, and basically goes on a roaring rampage of revenge, and is probably going to figure out and is going to be exceptionally pivotal to book 6, because she is about to get Jaime Lannister, one of the major leaders in the field for the opposing faction, likely to either let her into Riverrun or the twins, the seat of House Frey, the people who murdered her and her son, and is probably going to wreak bloody vengeance upon them. She is incredibly pivotal, and they've just decided, oh, we'll just have Arya kill House Frey in 2 episodes.
God, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
Wait, didn't Arya also kill the freaking Night King?
Yep.
Who was supposed to be killed by Jon Snow?
Yep.
Yep. Oh, it wasn't even a full episode.
Too much?
It wasn't even a full episode. It was the end of the last episode of the 6th season. No, the last episode of the 5th season. In the first. It just
6th and 7th. Last episode of season 6. First episode of season 7.
And it's not even that long either. It's like a coalition of maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
She reveals Frey. Oh yeah, I cooked your son into a pie. Well, both your sons to a pie that she murders the rest by poisoning their wine.
Yeah, it's frustrating that they decide to, and it ultimately screws up the plot progression of the Brotherhood Without Banners that she takes control of, because their leader gives up his life to resurrect her, but the problem is he's resurrected a monster.
Yeah.
So,
oh dear.
Yeah. My list of lingering questions, along with the desire to create a unified story from a decade of experience covering the show, is the reason for this book. Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon contains more than 50 exclusive new interviews with Game of Thrones producers, executives, cast, and crew that were conducted after the series finale. There were also many quotes that were previously published by Entertainment Weekly, as well as occasional quotes that were quoted by other outlets, which are attributed in the text along the way. Of course, no single book can capture the entirety of making a production as long-running and complex as Thrones, but it's my hope that readers will find some fascinating behind-the-scenes stories here about the characters and the moments they love the most. We're going to find this really fascinating, but not for the reasons you thought it is.
Exactly, and some of us are not even Thrones fans, so suck it.
We're here to read this book and to laugh at you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, most classy people would put something like this on the Blu-ray. But
Yeah. Well,
I was like,
most of these are bad. I don't think he understands like how bad this makes Benioff and Weiss look. It makes them look. It's like the only way that you can look like they're going to talk. If they're going to talk about the pilot and there's going to be new stuff, I think that we should also cover Dragon Demand's reports on the failed pilot. Like it was so. Like he's got multiple parts. It's like 5 like 10 to 20 minute parts.
They couldn't even get people were confused. People were confused initially that Jaime and Cersei were siblings.
Yeah, because the direction was in the script notes. The information was in the script notes, not in the actual dialogue. So they had to rewrite the dialogue with, "As your brother, I should tell you that you worry too much."
No, that's not a more natural way for that to happen, to be informed that they are brother and sister, would to have him say sister, da 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 da, and for her to say brother, yes, I agree, or something.
Yeah.
Not as your brother. Nobody speaks like that.
Yeah.
it's like, as you know.
As your servant,
Exactly.
I tell you, you overthink this person's indulgent too much.
Yeah, the words, the "as you know" is like, I think it's kind of from a Butler thing where kind of like, "As you know, the Lord and Lady are coming," and the maid replies, "As you know, I need to get everything finished before then, so I better get going." It's like,
Yeah,
let me remind you is a much more natural way to do that.
yeah. The "as you know" is one of the worst lines in existence.
It should be used sparingly.
I would
Very,
say never.
very sparingly.
I would say never use it and find an alternative because
I use it, but I only use it when I have no idea what else to put. So.
Well, I think it's like maybe just I think like with the question just so what I think like just either have one of the characters not know about it or what you're going to be talking about, or ask or say, "So about that, what do you think of this?" That's a good way of getting around the "as you know" by just hearing what's another character. Well, they both know about it, but one's asking their opinion of something.
Yeah.
Well, as you know.
Yeah.
Any off kid. Neither of the two are good writers.
No.
No, they're really not.
Yeah. Thrones was also, it should be said, controversial from literally its first episode to its last. I don't think so.
Depends on your definition of controversial.
Yeah, it depends on like hard hitting would be an example, like where they toss a kid out a window in the end of the first episode and they have incest as in the first episode. As well as a teenage girl getting raped by giant Jason Momoa. And yeah, And many of these topics are likewise addressed by the show's producers, directors, and cast, really not to the satisfaction of all, but you'll now learn why certain choices were made. Most of the choices come down to these performances, these faces.
It's just so asinine. Ugh.
Yeah. Mainly, this book seeks to chronicle the colossal effort that went into making an extraordinary show. They pretty well half-assed this whole thing toward the end.
I wanted to cast a crew even
And they
pulled
didn't learn anything
No.
while they did it either. They didn't learn time management. They didn't learn money management. They learned nothing.
Nope. There's nothing more rare in pop culture than to build an alternate world so popular, sophisticated, and engrossing that it is globally embraced as a place almost as real as our own. J.R.R. Tolkien did it with Lord of the Rings, so did George Lucas with Star Wars, J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter series, and Marvel with the cinematic universe. Game of Thrones gave rise to a living, breathing world due to the passionate and tireless efforts of thousands of people. But it's all worth remembering that it started with one man.
and that man's been betrayed.
Yep.
Oops.
Yeah, I do have to say that well, at least this shouldn't be too bad.
You skipped the first page of the first
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah. Alrighty, Wolf. Your turn.
All right. Chapter 1. A Dream of Dragons. Before the Starks and the Lannisters, the Dothraki and the Direwolves, before the continent of Westeros had formed and the first dragon had been born, there was a boy whose imagination could not be easily contained. George Raymond Richard Martin grew up in a
Federal.
Wait,
federal
really? Those are his names?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes.
god!
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Why did you actually find out what his two middle names are instead of just calling him George R.R. Martin? Because that's what he's known as. He's known as George R.R. Martin.
I'm surprised that he has four first names.
Well, you have to say, I think just that's part, and that's just to assume part of how things work is if you're telling something, what you'll do is you're talking about something, you'll basically just if you're talking about something, you'll say their full name.
Also, we got Crimson Scorpio in the chat.
Oh, hi, Crimson Scorpio, welcome.
Hello.
At Federal Housing Project in 1950s New Jersey, his father was a longshoreman and his mother worked as a factory manager. He wasn't allowed to have dogs or cats, but was permitted to own a tiny dime store turtles, along with a toy fortress to put them in. His first fantasy story, the first he could remember at least, was titled Turtle Castle. He imagined his tiny reptiles were competing for power and vying for a little plastic throne. One day, Martin made a shocking discovery. His turtles were dying. Despite his best efforts to keep his pets alive, his heroes still perished. It wasn't a twist he hadn't seen coming, so Martin began to weave their fates into his fantasy. Perhaps his turtles were killing each other off in sinister plots. As years passed, Martin put his fantasy to paper. He wrote monster stories and sold them to other kids for a dime apiece. He fell in love with comic books. He later sold short stories to pulp magazines. He then penned sci-fi and horror novels. In 1984, Martin moved to Hollywood and landed a job writing on CBS's reboot of The Twilight Zone. Martin's first aired episode was, as fate would have it, a fantasy tale about medieval knights and magic. The Last Defender of Camelot It was an adaptation of Roger Zelazny's short story about Sir Lancelot living in modern times. The climax is set in the otherworldly version of Stonehenge, where Lancelot fights an enchanted suit of armor, a silent mountain of a warrior called the Hollow Knight. In Arndt's original script, Lancelot and the Knight fought on armored horses. That idea was deemed unworkable by the show's line producers.
In Martin's original script, the Lancelot and Neph.
Yeah. I read that part.
Okay, show's line producers. Neph, I believe it is your turn. Let me.
They told me, you can have Stonehenge or you can have horses, recalled Martin. But you cannot have Stonehenge and horses. I called my friend Roger
Zelazny.
Zelazny to pose the question to him. He sucked on his pipe a minute and said Stonehenge, and so it was. They fought on foot. Undeterred, Martin moved on to another CBS fantasy show, 1987's Beauty and the Beast, where his scripts continued to bump up against network's creative limitations. Counting how many times we could say damn or hell, telling us a corpse's makeup couldn't be too horrific, eliminating a news report on a TV in the background because it might be too controversial, Merton said. Bullshit changes, sheer cowardice, afraid of anything that was too strong, anything that anyone might be offended by. Those restrictions I hated and rallied and railed against. Martin grew frustrated, disillusioned. He returned to writing novels full time in 1991, and a couple of years later, he had an idea for a fantasy story. A reaction, he once dubbed it, to his years spent writing for television. It was a sprawling epic like J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings saga that Martin adored, except Martin's tale was inspired by actual European historical events, such as the Wars of the Roses, and reflected the true brutality of the Dark Ages. The first book, A Game of Thrones, was published in 1996. Sales were, as Martin later wrote on his blog, something spectacular. In rapid succession, Martin followed up with 2 more books in the saga, their popularity spread by word of mouth, enthralling and ever-growing fandom with a complex story that shattered the fantasy genre's long-held rules. Beloved heroes died horribly, loathsome villains became strangely sympathetic, the wise and cunning were toppled by the slightest procedural error, and the power of magic was considered unreliable at best. Along the way, Martin threw in all the horses and castles and sex and violence he wanted. This wasn't the story of one fantasy kingdom, but 7. Each realm had its own distinct history, leadership, and culture. Plus, there were a whole other continent of diverse cities across the narrow sea. There were more than 2,000 named characters, a figure that doubled the count from Tolkien's saga. Plus, there were massive battles, one including 4 armies, tens of thousands of soldiers, and hundreds of ships. Even meals in Westeros could be extravagant, such as a banquet that included 77 distinct courses. Often, such feasts were lavishly described: elk roundels with blue cheese, grilled snake with fiery mustard sauce, river pike poached in almond milk. The book's adult content was equally voluminous.
Voluminous.
B-O-L-U-M.
Sorry, your pronunciations on my part.
With shocking acts of torture, rape, and incest. Martin penned paragraphs that single-handedly would have consumed an entire season of network TV show's budget, gotten a show kicked off the air, or both. He called this epic the Song of Ice and Fire.
Alrighty, Drake, it is your turn.
Hollywood took notice. By the early 2000s, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy was blowing up the box office. Then, in 2005, Martin's fourth installment in his saga, A Feast for Crows, debuted at number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list, probably. A fantasy realm too vile for hobbits, declared the Times. Martin's novel made the rounds among agents and producers. His phone rang with offers of easy money and silver screen glory. Martin, then 57 and enjoying a quiet life in Santa Fe, was wary.
Should have been warier, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
first few seasons were good.
Everything else, not so much.
Nope.
Okay, keep going.
Yep.
George R. R. Martin, author, co-executive producer. The Peter Jackson movies were big. Oh, this is a quotation from him, apparently. The Peter Jackson movies were big. Everybody was looking for a feature fantasy series of films. Everything was being optioned. I started A Song of Ice and Fire thinking it couldn't be filmed. I was like, how are you going to make a feature out of this that's 2.5 hours? You can't get it all in. Jackson took 3 movies to do Tolkien's books, but all 3 of Tolkien's books were as long as just one of mine. How are you going to do this? The answers I got back were not ones I wanted to hear, like fan favorite Stark bastard Jon Snow is the central character, we'll focus on him and cut the rest away, or they pitched, we're not going to cut anything, we'll keep it all, but we'll just make the first film and then make more if it's a big hit. Well, what if it's not a big hit? You're saying it's going to be Lord of the Rings, but what if it's more like Philip Pullman's failed 2007, his Dark Materials adaptation, The Golden Compass? You make one movie, it bombs, and then you have a broken thing. No, I wasn't interested in anything like that.
Oh, yeah, Game of Thrones did work better as a TV series, but at the same time, the person who was in charge was utter dipshit.
They were the wrong people for the job.
I gotta say, I feel Martin's pain here. This is what goes through my head whenever I consider that miraculous scenario, the science and sorcery or phalanx or whatever I write gets adapted somehow, and I sort of cringe internally knowing the damage that can be done to it.
Well, that's how I feel about my original stuff, too. And
Yeah, because
all
once
of
it's
my
original,
stuff
it's
is-
yours.
Well, yeah. All of my stuff. Well, not my fanfic, because I know that can't be adapted. But Tales from the Frontier? Yeah, no. No, I don't want that to be adapted. Not even as a mini-series. No. Besides, it's not finished yet.
Martin's literary agent sent copies of the A Song of Ice and Fire novels to David Benioff, 35-year-old novelist and screenwriter, and suggested he might consider trying to adapt them for feature film. Benioff was an up-and-comer in the industry, having penned the acclaimed 2002 crime thriller 25th Hour, along with screenplays for the films Troy and Kite Runner. 8 chapters into reading A Game of Thrones, David Benioff was stunned when 7-year-old Bran Stark, who had just witnessed an act of incest between the Queen of Westeros and her brother, was mercilessly shoved out a tower window. A few hundred pages later, when Martin killed the book's main character, the honorable and heroic Ned Stark, Benioff phoned his friend and writing partner Dan Weiss. Weiss, 34, had met Benioff a decade earlier when the two were studying literature in Trinity College, Dublin. They bonded over things like Irish literature and trying to find a functional gym in Dublin in 1995.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so good.
Okay. Weiss was an author as well, having published his debut novel and only novel,
Lucky Wonder Boy.
in 2003.
That's Wonder.
No, it's not Wonder, it's Wander. That's an A.
Yeah.
Benioff asked Weiss to read Martin's books to make sure I wasn't crazy. We were reading fantasy books since childhood and never encountered anything as good as what George had written, Benioff said. Benioff and Weiss, like others before them, wanted to adapt to Silent Ice and Fire. They quickly ruled out making the books into a movie, deciding instead that only a TV series could capture the scope of Martin's narrative. At least the duo hoped they would. Neither had ever worked on a TV show before.
This is where they should have gone, okay, we've not done this before. We need to go back to school, or we need to hand this off to someone else.
Or practice ourselves of something of a smaller scale. Thing is, Martin has worked on TV shows before, like we said earlier. He's experienced. Like, he's been a screenwriter for years, and like he even wrote like good scripts for...
Yeah, should have asked him to do the scripts for his own show.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, man.
have him go over the scripts you write.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. But
He'd
let's
have
keep
been
going.
able to teach you how to write them better. And no, I do not count Benioff as a screenwriter. He does not know how to do that.
Yeah, like, I don't... He is...
He writes everything as if it's a novel.
Yeah. Where is that? One moment. I need to get the clip. I need to get the clip.
You're unhappy with the ending. No, I question your basic writing credentials. This guy isn't a functional adult.
And
Maybe he's just a reckless and irresponsible jackass.
Yep.
he's an asinine idiot.
That's...
Okay, I'm drunk.
He's an
I got-
asinine, incompetent loser.
I'm gonna find out what that drunken mumble just said. J.R.R. Martin started getting miffed back in season 2 with them screwing around with Jean to the point he made them rename her to Talisa.
Yep, exactly. Dragon Demands is a video all about that.
What? They made Oh, it's because she was so out of character, isn't it?
No, they basically just threw out the original character and made a new one, just to make it a romance story instead of a tragic honor story.
It would be like if the Jake Skywalker meme actually happened, apparently.
You tell me Jake Skywalker didn't happen?
Jake Skywalker did, but nobody behind the film actually
Believe so.
Yeah,
acknowledges it.
yeah.
Except for Mark.
Well, Mark was the one who realized that no, this is not Luke Skywalker in the first place.
Alrighty, Wolf, your turn.
Where to?
Martin agreed to meet Benioff and Weiss.
Alright. Martin agreed to meet Benioff and Weiss for lunch at the Palm Restaurant in Los Angeles to hear their pitch. The meeting lasted 4 hours and would ultimately produce a pop culture dragon, the biggest global television phenomenon of the 21st century. It all might have been derailed by Martin asking a single, unexpected question. Dan Weiss, showrunner. Cool. We were nervous when you started working in Hollywood. Every meeting is nerve-wracking because you feel if you don't do it right, it's the last meeting you're ever going to have. I've gotten long past that. I got used to meetings and most never amounted to anything, but this feels like the first meeting I'd ever taken all over again because we knew this was a one-of-a-kind opportunity, and if we didn't get this job, we'd never have a chance to work on something like this again. Because
Well, you shouldn't have been working on something that was this big in the first place, but
somebody more competent should have gotten this job.
yes.
Because nobody had ever seen anything like this before. There was one keeper of the keys, and that was George. If George didn't say yes, all of our dreams were dead in the curb, so we were under pressure to get right. Part of the meeting was talking about where George came from and the science fiction writers he knew. Part of it was talking about his books and our passion for them. For him to see that we'd had really read them, having worked in Hollywood before, George knew about people who read a synopsis of a book and then say, oh, this could work as a Lord of the Rings knockoff. the fact we read this books and it could speak to them with some degree of knowledge, I think meant something to them. When converting to Judaism, the rabbi's job is not to convince you to convert, but to talk you out of it. There was an element of that, which George explained to us. That
What? No. That. Yeah! No! No, 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 no! 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 Ugh. Just no.
I'm so glad that I watched The Haunting of Bly Manor last night just to get some actual quality TV show writing.
A rabbi's job is not to convince you to convert, but to talk you out of it? No, that's not what the rabbi's job is.
Let's. There was an.
I got it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, go for it.
I'm sorry about that. I'm Jewish, so this is a real.
Okay, so you actually do have some authority to speak on that. Okay.
Yes, I do. I'm not very religious anymore because the rabbis pushed us out. But yeah, I can speak to this. No, that's not their job. Their job is to not talk you out of being a Jew. Their job is to strengthen your faith.
That's pretty much the same thing with every ecclesiastical leader across the board.
Yeah.
I'm also along the same lines.
It's like the only exception may be Buddhism. Maybe.
Yeah.
Buddhism doesn't really have
Yeah.
have that many, like, I don't know how much like Buddhism have like organized like ecclesiastical leaders along the lines of, say, Christianity or Judaism.
Well, they got a Dalai Lama and they got like a bunch of like lesser lamas floating around, but that's about it.
It's also about I believe
It's more philosophical than actually religious, though.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Crow's here.
Oh yay, hello.
Nice to see you, Crow. Yeah, I guess this thing.
Great.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
These are normal. Yeah, Wei said that. Oh. He's
They are both.
not.
They are both.
I have listened to somebody being converted. I can tell you that's not the freaking case.
No, it's not.
Your
Their job is to help you find God. That
turn.
is their job. If that means you convert, then that's what happens.
Okay.
Okay, Wolf.
Alright, here we go. There was none of that with George explaining to us that the reason he left television to do full-time running was to write things he couldn't produce. George told us about the horses in Stonehenge. He said, "My imagination is bigger than the horses in Stonehenge. I want Stonehenge and the horses and another 20 Stonehenges and another 1,000,000 horses." He wrote the books to use the entirety of his imaginative capacity and wrote it almost intentionally to be unfilmable. George
They
created.
took that literally. They
Yeah.
freaking took that literally.
That's going to be used as their justification for the 70 horses.
Yes, I bet it is.
George created a world so rich that. Sorry.
Oh, I
Oh,
was.
it's okay. It's okay.
He wrote the films, and it's to use the entirety of his imaginative capacity, and wrote it almost intentionally to be unfilmable. You can pretty much do anything with CGI, I think.
Yeah, and you only have to worry about rating when you have potty mouths like that.
In fact,
if you get good enough people, anything is possible.
In fact, I've actually started rewatching The Phantom Menace for the first time in like years. And it's like, you cannot, like a lot of things in Star Wars, you cannot accomplish with just practical effects. You need to use CGI. It's the unnecessary evil, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I agree with that. And like the Phantom Menace actually does have a lot of practical effects in it. It has more practical effects than the sequels.
It has more practical effects than the entirety original trilogy. It has a lot. Actually, it has like the most practical effects in all of Star Wars, I would say, which is very weird. I
think like the brain kind of is tricked because he misses a lot of like CGI into it, but that's a discussion from another time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not like I'm like halfway through the Phantom Menace. As soon as the stream's over and before the campaign starts, I'm going to be watching more of it.
Alrighty.
So much happened in the past, like the dark. George created a world so rich that you're coming into the story 95% of the way into it. So much happened in the past, like the Targaryen invasion of Westeros, and you need to understand that stuff in order for the continued current story to make sense. Books have a more elegant way of putting backstory in. On television, you do a flashback or boring exposition. So one of George's questions was, how are you going to let that audience know all the stuff that's so crucial? I don't remember what our answer was. We probably came up with some bullshit.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
It's Perion.
Boring exposition?
Also, he can't. Also, he's admitted that he can't write flashbacks because he finds them too complicated.
It's not that complicated!
No, it's not. I don't write flashbacks because I prefer not to. But I can use them, and I have used them tastefully.
I have used probably one flashback in the entirety of the time I've been writing.
I don't know. I've never had a problem with flashbacks, but maybe that's my Yu-Gi-Oh heritage showing.
Maybe.
Alright.
Okay.
You can take it from here, done.
Alrighty.
Or wait, no, isn't it my turn then?
Yeah, it's Neph's.
Okay. In the course of making the show, you develop your approach to those things. But looking back on it, the history he built, even if you take out 90%, is like the scaffolding on a building. You don't see the scaffolding after you take it away, but the fact it was there is what makes the building look right. You feel that 90% of history through the 10% that's on screen. There's this overarching sense of backstory and connection and logic to why characters feel the way they feel about each other. It's never just people fighting because it's traumatic.
Learn the. Oh, God.
No. I mean,
You didn't learn this at all. You are a hypocrite. That's all the final season was.
yeah, it's like. And no, the 90-10%. No, that's not how. That ratio is off.
Yeah, it's.
I think what you want is more 60 to 70% of stuff on screen, and then 30% and some stuff that's backstory that does not pertain to what happened, but what people need to know. So that 30% is in dialogue, flashbacks if you need them, or just portrayed through the actions of the characters themselves. Because it should be evident what is there. It doesn't just have to be exposition or flashbacks. There's subtlety in this.
You could show tapestries and paintings.
Yeah, tapestries, paintings, snippets of conversations,
I'll tell you
rumors.
a poor example of using flashbacks is Kill Bill Volume 2. 3/4 of that entire film is a flashback.
God.
And that's not all. There's also a flashback within a flashback that's spread out and it's the bride's training because
Yeah.
in the first volume, we had to get it in this volume.
Yeah. They were very persuasive. They loved the books and wanted to adapt the books to a different medium, not change them or make it their own. I hate that in Hollywood. When I go in pitching a book and meet with writers and they're like, here's my take on it. I don't want your take on it. Don't reimagine it. Don't make it your own. Just adapt it.
Oh
I told
boy,
them,
that aged well.
yeah. I told them I want a faithful adaptation. I don't want it to be one of those things where you take a title and write a new story. And I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to be a producer on it and write some scripts. And it can't be for a traditional broadcast network. I don't want the sex and violence cut out. This a season for each book. So we were on the same accord. Except that did not happen
Poor
because
George, these two. You were talking directly to the people who would stab the knife in your back.
yeah, they squished books 4 and 5 into a single season when you could have had 2 seasons for both to get all of the details in it. The meeting was going well. The lunch crowd had long since departed, and the restaurant staff was preparing for dinner. Then Martin asked Benioff and Weiss a question that might have ended their tentative partnership right there, and probably should have. One of the biggest mysteries in Martin's novels is the secret of Jon Snow's parentage. The Stark bastard is described as the son of Ned Stark and an unnamed mistress. He met during Robert Baratheon's rebellion. Baratheon, sorry. Rebellion against
Aerys II Targaryen. Aerys Targaryen II.
The Mad King. Martin had scattered clues along the way, hinting at Jon Snow's true identity, and fans had several theories. I did famously ask them the question, who is Jon Snow's mother? They said they read the books. I wanted to see if they'd really read the books, and how much they paid attention.
I like this guy's style.
I like his style. This should have cut off their entire relationship.
You never. No, funny enough, I don't think they knew. Wait, they knew the answer. Really, the answer was Lyanna and Rhaegar. I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. That's one of many theories. There's the Ned and Asha Dane theory. Ned and
Ashara Dane, yeah.
then there's the Ned and Becca, that's her name, Becca's theory. Then there's the Ned and an unnamed fisherman's daughter. And then, of course, R plus L equals J.
Which I think is the most plausible, actually. Like, just based on the fact that, like, Ned barely thinks about Ashara Dane, but he thinks about Lyanna quite a bit. So...
yeah, possibly.
And blue roses are mostly associated with Jon. And Jon and Arya look alike, but Arya is associated with looking like Lyanna, so we can make the assumption that Jon is like Lyanna, looks like Lyanna.
Yeah, that's actually. I think Robert. I think even Robert comments on it when he first gazes upon Arya. I haven't read the books, but I do think there was a line where he commented that Arya looked like a younger Lyanna.
We were weirdly prepared for that question. Oh my god. This wording. We had discussed that the day before. We just started to talk about it, and it came up with our theory, which just happened to be right. They knew the answer, which was good. After we got the Jon Snow mother question right, he gave us the backing to try and go out there and sell it. It was a strange situation. It's hard to remember now, but when we sat down, I had way more television experience than David and Dan. I spent 10
Far
years
more.
in television. I'd gone through the ranks from staff writer to a supervising producer. If fate had been a little different, I might have ended up a showrunner myself.
If fate had
And
been really
here-
good, you would have been one of many competent showrunners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or in the writer's room.
Where you actually should have been the entire time because you're the author of the damn series.
And you're an experienced screenwriter on top of that. He knows
How to write a screenplay.
Yeah, he should have been looking over their shoulders when figuratively when writing.
And here were two guys who were very talented writers, but had never
That have
done
done anything in TV before.
They
So
haven't
a
done
part of
If you look at David Benioff's credentials pre-Game of Thrones, he's been in a lot of shaky to crappy films. He was on Troy, which had butchered the Iliad. He was in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
it's not the Iliad without all of the mythological elements, and he got rid of them.
He also removed. From all those things, he removed Cassandra. I think he may have actually been the one that removed because Cassandra Troy was also missing in that film.
He
Cassandra.
removed Deadpool's mouth, and you thought this was the guy to adapt something faithfully.
Oh my god, yeah. Martin, you were... I
Duped.
feel so very sorry for you. I do. I really, really do.
Yeah.
Also, on the Jon Snow thing, I want to point this out. Nick Brown, the man for now, Catelyn Stark in the book also hates Jon for looking a lot like Eddard. That's not the only reason she hates him, though.
Yeah, it's because he's illegitimate, and she's scared that he might take the Winterfell away from her own kids.
Their theory just happened to be correct. They have no idea how freaking lucky they got.
Man,
What? No, I
don't think that's a theory.
That's very tinfoil. This is
No.
just as tinfoil.
No, that's no. Brandon was supposed to marry Catelyn. That was never going to happen.
Yeah. But-
Okay.
So Drake's so a part of, and then just
Let me finish it, and then
Okay,
he can
cool.
have the next one.
okay.
Wanted to do it myself, but I hadn't finished writing the books. I still haven't finished the books. I didn't see that happening. Okay, now it's your turn, Drake.
Pitching Game of Thrones as a television series was the first of many uphill battles producers would fight to get the show on the air.
It
While
should
the
have been the last one.
films were hits and other parties had approached Martin about making a possible movie, fantasy on television was associated with low-budget, all-ages syndicated fare like Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules Legendary Journeys. Martin's books were very
There's
R-rated.
nothing wrong with either of those TV shows. Those TV shows are classics.
Also,
They're kind of
Xena
campy,
characters
though.
get crucified multiple times. So,
What? I didn't hear that.
in Xena, characters get crucified multiple times because they keep coming back to life. But anyway, Martin's books are very R-rated, and fantasy for grown-ups was a largely untested market. You talk dragons, you got smirked, as Harry Lloyd, who played Viserys Targaryen, put it. And even a scaled-down version of A Song of Ice and Fire would be prohibitively expensive. There were only a few networks at the time that allowed adult content and might be able to afford the show.
So
Benioff
maybe instead of doing it live action, they should have done it in animation. That probably would have cost a whole lot less.
Well, the thing is, Castlevania had not come out by this point, so they probably weren't thinking about something like that. Like adult, animated shows did not exist. Adult fantasy shows did not exist at this point, and technically the
call
only one that
absolute bullshit because there is stuff. What do you think Adult Swim is?
I'm
Well-
imagining a Game of Thrones
Kill.
anime.
adult fantasy. How many adult fantasy shows are there?
Do you count anime?
Well, considering that most anime is made in Japan, and then
That doesn't stop them from being adult shows.
I'm
well,
pretty sure
they're pitching it in America. There aren't many American-made animated adult shows, and this is 2008. So
Simpsons, Futurama.
adult fantasy shows. Most of them are the adult shows of the time are comedy shows. because they can get away with edgier jokes.
I think
And
with
less animation.
Yep.
Okay. Ready?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Benioff and Weiss drafted a confident-sounding, and it turned out prophetic, proposal that included lines such as, "People are hungry for Game of Thrones. They will watch it and keep watching it and tell everyone they know to watch it and never stop talking about it at dinner, at work, at home."
I think we have the perfect clip for that. Hint, hint, done.
play it,
Which
play
one?
it, play it, play it.
Which one? I have two.
It's the
Get excited for next
People-
product?
throw money at it. Explosions happen, and people empty their wallets to see it.
Oh, that one. Oh, that one, yeah.
Stop bringing logic into a movie! Random, incoherent, juvenile shit happens, things explode, and people empty their wallets to see it!
Yep.
Exactly.
I guess it's like anyone can see it. It's like say what you will. There's something for everyone out there.
Yep, there is. And while Game of Thrones is not for me because of that R rating and all the language and all the porn.
Or me, because it's just like fantasy and rock castles.
My God, that Spartacus would not have been your thing because it was even bloodier than Game of Thrones.
And
yeah.
way more orgy filled.
Yeah. That has like one episode of Game of Thrones. It's like one episode of Spartacus has more curses than an entire season of Game of Thrones.
And it's like, you keep using dirty language, even where you shouldn't be using it. Did
I'll
you
never
not
forget-
learn manners?
I'll never forget that moment in season 3 when he's like, "Put cock in us."
Oh my god.
Oh, that joke. That was a line. Ugh.
Alrighty,
Okay, Drake.
keep going, Drake.
Okay.
When we give them the
give
show.
them a show, they will lose their fucking minds. In their pitch, the duo promised the show would have none of the things that can make fantasy feel creaky, corny, or kiddie. They tried to sell their adaptation to 3 outlets. One potential buyer was DirecTV, which was also looking to fund original content, but was also considered a rather unexciting option with a limited
Clientele.
platform. Benioff and Weiss also pitched Showtime, which was interested, but the CBS-owned cable network was known for modest spending. Said Benioff, "We intuitively knew that even the most expensive Showtime show ever made couldn't come close to getting this where it needed to be." That left
Call
HBO.
bullshit again, because this show might have actually profited if they'd had less money to spend.
But this is
They might have
Benioff.
actually learned something.
Well, this is
I
Benioff.
think-
He eats over
well-
$20,000 just to get a candy bar.
Well, I think the one problem that, like, they're actually with Wheel of Time. I actually am kind of happy that they're, like, from Game of Thrones, even in the cheaps, is like 10 million per episode.
Well, my point is, if they'd been given a spending limit, then they might have
Well-
learned money management. Might.
Well, the thing was they were given money, like reduced purse strings. It was only after, during season, like during the filming of season 5, that like HBO said basically gave them blank check. Before that, they were severely restricting the budget, or at least like restricting it.
Oh, that
the show
was such
successful.
a stupid idea.
Yeah,
It was so dumb.
yeah. That left HBO. which
That
Mark-
left HBO. Okay, you're taking it done?
No, you can just finish it.
Okay, that left HBO, which Martin, Benioff, and Weiss had agreed over lunch would be the ideal home. And if you wanted HBO to buy your pitch, there was one person in particular you had to impress. Then programming president and 19-year HBO veteran Carolyn Strauss. The executive power at the network, combined with their inscrutable demeanor and penchant for wearing all black, gave Strauss a reputation for being, as Benioff put it, the scariest person in Hollywood.
That's scary enough,
Casting
apparently.
couch. Oh my, that's not scary. It might be intimidating, but it's not necessarily scary.
No, you see, she wasn't ambiguously brown.
Otherwise, I would have thought that was kinky.
Yeah. The idea for Thrones wasn't something I necessarily gravitate toward, but being an executive isn't necessarily about doing everything you like to do. Benioff and Weiss booked a pitch meeting with Strauss and other executives. Gina Perion, former vice president of drama at HBO. The vibe in the room was very quiet. We were listening intently. The pitch was very similar to the story of the pilot. They walked us through that first hour and ended up with a cliffhanger. My mouth was gaping opening. The kid was pushed out a window. David Benioff, we talked about how fantasy is the most popular genre there is. Lucy defines Star Wars as fantasy. Harry Potter.
No, Star Wars is not fantasy.
It's space fantasy. But yes. Yeah. And
It's one of the space opera.
Yeah.
It's space opera specifically.
Yeah. Oh. And even
Almost any unenlightened prejudice sci-fi. Sorry.
Yeah. And even superhero movies are their own kind of fantasy. I just noticed that, like, Sanderson just barely put out a video about tips and tricks for getting past writer's block.
Oh, nice.
Excellent.
You should put that in Writer's Aid or something.
Well, we could watch that as a palate cleanser for this, since it's only like 6 minutes long.
All right.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
That's going to be nice.
Carolyn Strauss, there are a fair number of reasons not to do it. There are many ways a fantasy series can go south. Any show that relies on a mythology that isn't thought out in enormous detail can go off the rails.
Oh, I don't think she read Game of Thrones then.
Well, the problem is, like, they were pitching it to executives who had never read it before. So,
yeah.
You may be good for a season or two, and then after that you start running into brick walls. Thus, this was clearly going to be expensive. Yeah, no crap, Sherlock.
God, you should not have written those blank checks.
Well,
Really?
I think by that point it was Richard Plepler who was giving them, like, the okay, because Mr. Benioff's daddy is very much buddies with Mr.
Oh, great. More
Mr.
nepotism.
Yeah, yeah,
Nepotism.
they're buddy.
You still saw that coming.
What was said?
Nepotism. Wolf, I hate to say this, but I have to use this quote with that one.
Pop, you get the fuck away from here! So did you like it? Did you like it?
Please don't. Kaiju God's already threatened to throw me in the gulag.
No, I'll just spay you or something.
Don't you dare.
Thank you, Dunn.
You're welcome.
You
wouldn't-
would be saving me the trouble.
You
Yeah.
dare.
I have a sword. I can easily chop it off.
Oh, I also have a sword.
I'm better with it than you are.
Good point.
I have fencing training. You do not.
But I will not go down without a fight. So even if I don't last a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep going. David Benioff, we said that most shows begin only knowing their first season.
No. No.
Okay.
Okay. Avatar: Last Airbender. I believe they had the entire show written at some point. Well,
They at
no.
least had a series They had a series Bible.
Yeah.
I imagine, like most shows do. Because of the work that George had done, we had a sense of where this was going for many seasons, and yet you didn't set up Jane Poole for seasons 5 or 6, depending. Even though we knew,
you mashed 2 books together when you didn't have to.
yeah,
They didn't even have anything left afterwards.
Even then, we knew, though George's books hadn't gotten there, that the exiled heroine Daenerys Targaryen would come back to Westeros and fight for the throne. We had a sense of the show 5 years down the road, and that's a rare privilege for television. Caroline Strauss.
Just like how you thought you knew that Arya would kill the Jon.
Kill the Night King.
Sorry, kill Night King. I confused it.
That was supposed to be Jon's
Yep.
accomplishment.
Yep. The way they told the story in that meeting made it sound much more involved and complex and character-driven than I usually feel from fantasy stories. It was not a story of good versus evil, but characters who had element of both those things. At one point, Carolyn laughed, and we were like, oh my gosh, we're in. We made Carolyn Strauss laugh. We felt good by the end of that meeting that they were interested.
She could have just been laughing at how absurd the two of you were.
You want to look at that and laugh at?
Well, here's the thing. They are not bad pitch artists. They are bad execution people. They're excellent con men because they are able to make BS, when you hear it verbally, sound relatively
Functional.
Yeah, relatively functional and reasonable. However, it's when you have a transcript of what they're saying that it makes them sound stupid.
Also, I gotta point this out, what Nick Brown just said.
Oh, let me pull back. Whereabouts?
Nick Brown. Oh. How much of a big budget did these two guys need to kickstart this show? I think we're about to find out.
$20 million for the pilot.
What?
They got 10,000
chump change.
They got 10,000 up front. They got 10 million to try and film the first one, and then because of excellent foreign pre-sales, despite the pilot failing, they got the money to go back and refilm it. Basically blackmailing HBO, saying, hey, you wasted all this money, you might as well just get over the sunk cost, just go full into the sunk cost fallacy.
Loss leader! Loss leader!
Great, another example of them failing upwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This wasn't your HBO show. After the pitch, I ran down to Carolina's office. We're going to buy this, right? HBO agreed to make Game of Thrones to take Game of Thrones to the next step, negotiating with Martin for the rights to A Song of Ice and Fire. This loan ended up taking nearly a year due to legal hangups. George R. Martin, the big sticking point was the merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made. We didn't know that it would be. We didn't know it would be. We didn't know it would be big going in, but HBO's lawyers didn't want to set the precedent of giving away something they hadn't given away before. I was saying, I can't give you everything you want. I already have a video game in the works, a role-playing game in the works. I've already given the rights to a guy to make replica coins. We knew Game of Thrones replica coins would be a thing. So we were in this endless negotiation of parsing individual terms like, you can have bobble rings, I get bobblehead dolls, I get key rings.
You should have asked for a Keyblade as
There's
well.
a licensed tabletop game for this series.
Wait, really?
Apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm interested. Okay, I won't lie. I'm kind of interested in that.
Alrighty.
I'm kind of interested too, but I'm afraid all the books for it are going to be filled with profanity.
Yeah, I should look it up and see if it's actually worth
I
the
don't
crap
think.
game
I don't
was.
think that it will be. I don't think that I think the main books are profanity filled, but I don't think the role playing game would be filled with profanity.
No,
Oh,
because
thank goodness.
that's actually up to the DM whether or not they should add in like 25 of their curse words.
Mm-hmm. Then came another stumbling block. Strauss, who had been a strong advocate for the show behind the scenes, stepped down from HBO in 2008. Strauss shifted to join Thrones as an executive producer, but a regimen change after the network often spells doom for titles developed under the previous boss. Somehow, Benioff and Weiss had convinced the news leadership structure led by HBO co-president Richard Plepler and programming president Michael Lombardo to spend at least $10 million on a pilot that was wildly unlike anything else HBO or any other network had ever made.
Yeah.
$10 million.
$10 million.
Put your
There's
stick. Put your
10
pinky in
Oh,
your mouth.
good God, it's
$10
over
million.
9,000.
I got that reference.
I understood that reference.
You should. It's everywhere.
Yeah,
I
I
read
need
it.
to.
No, I actually watched that film.
I know. Most people and their dog watched that film. It was the third highest grossing film. No, this is before the pilot was filmed and reshot. That was another 20 million. They got another 10 million. So in total, it was the most expensive pilot in history.
Jesus.
Yeah, and HBO is hurting because of that now.
Yeah, like admittedly, like they hired somebody who like has like 10 years of experience in like as part of the writing staff for the new Game of Thrones show, House of the Dragon, which is going to be on the Dragon Rider Civil War, the Dance of the Dragons, which should be interesting. Nice. And it's like there's only like 3 female writers on it, but like I'm cool with that since we try to.
I don't care who or what the writers are, as long as the writing is good.
But at least anything anti-male.
As far as I know, no. And the lady's actually she was on Orange is the New Black, and she was telling like she's an actual like married lesbian who is in a loving relationship with her wife, and a lot of the straight ladies in the writers room were like, maybe we should ship these women together, and they're like, and she was like, no, that wouldn't work for the story. Like just rampantly shipping wouldn't work for this character or that character. It just seems as though it would be tokenism. Please don't do it.
Yeah, you need to. Well, then I wish every show had a woman like that to go, no, we can't do this. Please don't.
My respect for her just went up.
Yeah.
Like, a lot.
Mission accomplished. Plus $20,000. There's plus to respect.
Yeah. Wolf. Start at Michael Lombardo.
Michael Lombardo, former HBO programming president. HBO is still coming out with The Sopranos, The Wire, and Deadwood. You're getting questions like, why did you not get Mad Men? How come you didn't pick up Breaking Bad? We had been a place for all things quality drama, and we're looking to regain our footing. But Game of Thrones didn't seem to fall to our category. They didn't scream Emmy voters. This was not a genre. This was not a genre embraced by the voices HBO traditionally listened to for drama series. It had a lot going against it. But Carolyn said, "This is a really good script. You should read this." And it read like a page turner. The writing was sharp and clear.
Oh dear.
Right.
Okay, my question is, did George R.R. Martin write the first script, or was it one of the hacks?
This is really...
I don't know.
If it's for the pilot, this is strange because when they got sent somebody to give it feedback, they got 2 words. Massive problem. So
massive problem. Okay, that's promised.
Yeah.
And that's also very promising.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right.
Keep going.
You get to Jamie pushing Bran out the window. I was like, holy shit, this isn't anything like I read. Still, The Lord of the Rings has been out and was done pretty damn well. How do we complete with that? How can this feel from a production standpoint as textured and credible? You knew it had to be able to stand next to projects in this genre being done on the big screen, yet with a more limited budget. Hanging Over Thrones was the fallout of another HBO title, 2005's Rome, an ambitious and compelling period drama, co-produced with the BBC that cost a staggering $100 million for its first season. HBO had axed Rome due to low rating for its second season aired. The network was understandably reluctant to sink tens of millions to another Swords and Shields costume jumble when they had just one that didn't work. Benioff and Weiss tried to assure HBO executives that Thrones would remain far less explicit than Rome.
Yeah, no, that
They
fell off
over-
the map as soon as they wrote a carte blanche check.
$14 million on the pilot alone.
$20 million on the pilot
Sorry, 20
Yeah,
million.
20.
after they gave them to reshoot after they botched it royally. Like basic problems.
Yeah. It's
Dan
like
Weiss.
the fact that the pilot had to be reshot should have been a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Dan Weiss. A story of this scale had never been told within film entertainment, to my knowledge. Nowadays, it's economically viable to make a television show at this scale. Back then,
X'd it out. X'd it out.
Back then, it just wasn't done. HBO had tried to Throne, which was a step in that direction. One thing we felt like we had going for us is we said, it's not a symphony, it's like a chamber piece. The lie we told was...
Well, that the show was contained in about the characters. Dang. The lie was, like you said, the show was contained about the characters. Wow.
You admitted he lied.
Wow.
Anybody who ever hires these guys again is a fool.
Yes.
And this is the puff piece.
Yeah. This is supposed to be gaslighting the fans into saying, Game of Thrones was hard to make. Stop being so mean. Like they actually said like at Comic-Con when like a lot of people came in, like pre-Comic-Con, there was a thing of, well, I'll have to show that after, but there was like people thought that they were going to throw tomatoes or something, but all that happened was just boos in the audience. And they basically
people were
intentionally
much too polite.
Yeah,
if
and
that's the case.
And one main problem was they actually pre-rehearsed the questions on the Comic-Con panel, where basically it was all scripted from the beginning, and it's like Dragon Demands actually has a really interesting video comparing what they said to in the panel to another interview with the same guy at another point in time. It is the exact same. They are saying nearly the exact same thing word for word.
Rehearsed.
And they deliberately ran out the clock so that people would not ask any questions. And said the Q&A. And there was actually apparently this girl dressed up as Daenerys was really, really furious about how she ended and wanted to demand answers. Problem was the friggin' showrunners chickened out at the last minute, or were told not to go. I think told not to go because they went to Austin Film Festival, which was way more damaging to them.
Mm-hmm.
And
probably the only decision that I respect Disney for is backing out of the Benioff and Weiss Star Wars movies.
Yeah. I think another thing about the Comic-Con was they kind of acknowledged that people hated the show and just said, "Hey guys, be nice." And this is the only time in Comic-Con history that this has ever happened, where somebody literally came out and said, "Don't be mean. We all love these content creators. Please be nice. Without them, we wouldn't have these various different creations, and we love their TV shows and we love the other movies. Please just be nice."
Love the TV show. Love the movies. Okay.
Yeah.
There's only one movie under his name that I know of, and he royally botched the TV show.
There are 3 that he has made: Troy, Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and 25th Hour.
So, yeah, the crowd had every right to be really
Also, you
Pissed
deliberately
off.
ran out the clock to avoid questions from the audience. Something that was deliberately advertised in this thing, and you deliberately ran out the clock.
Yeah. It's like, you were scared that they were not gonna be nice. You
Oh,
were.
yeah, and you
If
made
that's
them
not
look bad.
fear.
And it made them look worse. Like everybody was saying, "Dang, they chickened out because they chickened out because they knew they would have to answer hard questions." And then the preacher cast just ripped into them.
Yeah.
Like,
Then
I bet they
Channel
regret.
right after them ripped into them.
I bet they regret making Brad the king. I bet they regret killing off all those dragons and also Brad doesn't have the best story. And I'm here, aren't I? Well, do you think that what will be better, Game of Thrones or Preacher? Well, I'm here, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nick Brown stated this. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna pop up yet, but Seth Rogen roasting the Game of Thrones showrunners was amazing.
Amazing. Yes.
Yeah,
it was.
we did a reaction to that a few weeks ago. I think it's one of our second or third live stream.
Mhm.
Please go back and watch that. It's at the very end. You can just skip to the end, and it's just us laughing at how just ruthlessly, just the ruthless pot shots, like no
I might
mercy.
have to go
at
back
all.
and watch it.
All right.
Yeah, you can also watch the original video. Yeah, keep going.
We knew most of the people making the decisions were not going to read 4,000 pages of Martin's books and get to dragons getting bigger in the major battles. The show was what?
What?
The show was exactly what we told them it wasn't. We were banking on them not finding out until it was too late.
It's like breaking something and then keeping it a lie to your parents that you were going to break it, and there's a fact the dog that did it, and you kept it for so long, and then they found out about it when it was too late to do anything because they had already.
So Drake, was this good enough stupid for you?
This is just like a cautionary tale. There's no rank or progressiveness level of stupid, but
Yeah. Oh my god, the rancor progressiveness. I love that.
I have to ask, on which live stream was that?
School of Movies, Part 1.
Yes.
Oh boy.
You weren't there for that. We will eventually do their We Need to Talk About Fandom show at some point. That's going to take a while.
God, I'm looking forward to that. And
Yeah, it's 2 hours long.
if these people watch the show and go, I want to take a look at the source material for this, they're going to find out if they end up getting hooked.
Mm-hmm.
It might take them a few days, maybe a week or two to get there, but when they get there, it's gonna be, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and it's just like, but you're admitting here you were lying to HBO. Unambiguously.
Not only did you lie to Martin's face, you lied to HBO. I hope you never, ever get another job. You don't need
the problem
one.
is Netflix has hired them, along with Ryan Johnson, to adapt Three Body Problem.
Tell me lies. Tell me sweet little lies.
Oh no, I wish that were a lie, but Ryan Johnson's a producer.
No, that's their theme song from here on out. Tell me a lie. That's these two's theme song from here on out. Sweet little lies.
Alrighty. Miss Alrighty.
I'm not sure I ever really believed that. We knew it was a gamble. We were butchering it and scratching our head whether we should go ahead and greenlit this. We were trying to figure out the production challenges. There was something else going against Thrones. Well, Benioff and Weiss had never worked on a television show before. At least I want to bring it past the point stage.
This is just making them
You've
look
been raising
worse.
red flags in people's heads. It really, really should have.
Typically, it's
It's like at some point, this is HBO's fault.
Yeah. This
It's
is
like-
them suckering the execs and the guys who would prevent the show from getting made. Yep.
seriously, with all these red flags, it makes you look like the idiots for falling for them.
Yeah.
They must have told some sweet little lies.
Yep.
Typically, it's the situation as a network would bring in a and word to take the lead on the project. But HBO Insider said Benioff and Weiss continually impressed them with their insights during the show's development process.
Well, you had one too. The actual writer is a veteran writer-producer.
and it might have
He
been
has 10
interesting.
years of experience working in television. It would have been him.
And he could have at least like given the like directives down to like and discussed it with others in a writer's room and actually had a writer's room, unlike just two guys clanking out at their computers, not talking to each other.
It could have been.
Oh, you have to rephrase that. It's one.
Monkeys trying to write Shakespeare
Oh.
would have done a better job.
Alright.
Why are you talking Shakespeare like that? He's more we show Shakespeare like this.
No, I'm not insulting Shakespeare.
I know. It's like
Already.
it's like there's no. It's like of course he's gonna write something better than this. He's freaking William Shakespeare.
I
Yeah.
said a monkey typing out Shakespeare.
Oh,
Yeah.
honestly, I
That's
want
how
to see that.
bad these people are.
Yeah. Already. Neff's up. Carolyn
Okay,
Strauss.
so where are we?
Carolyn Strauss.
Okay.
Right.
Carolyn Strauss. I worked with series producers where we forced them to hire other writers, but Dan and David were always confident they could do it, and they were very open to learning what they didn't know.
No, they're just giving lip service based on what happened in seasons 5 through 8. No.
Yes.
And also just from the beginning, those don't look like actual screenwriting clips. This looks like bad book like maybe
Bad
decent
novel writing.
Yeah. It's like you don't write it. Like there's an actual clip. I would need to find it, but on the Dusty Wheel they had a script writer on, and somebody asked, so is putting the internal dialogue in the script notes a good idea? And she said, fetch no. That's stupid.
They're incredibly fast learners. No, they're not. We would bring in producers or development heads who were more experienced and had a certain conventional wisdom, and time again, both Dan and David would prove their instinct was the right one. Bit by bit, they earned our trust. Oh no! I
Well, the
feel
thing is-
so bad for you.
Well, so one thing that is really scary about Mr. Benioff is his use of this book called Blink, which has been hotly contested because it's very stupid, and even he
Blink?
gets it wrong. Basically, the idea is that if you are educated in an important field, you should be able to kind of give an instinctual automatic response. And that will usually be the right one right off the bat, and you usually second guess yourself. However, Benioff says this to people like, "No, you're letting your your intellectual mind get in the way. What's your instant blink response?" We'll eventually cover
No.
that video, but it's just horrifying
Okay, yeah.
that you would kind of use that as a pep talk.
It is horrifying.
Where it's just like, "No, I am the horse trainer. This is how long it's going to take." Based on my experienced example. No, you'll be able to do it faster. Just what's your
No.
blink response?
No, that's how fast horses learn. You. Ah!
Yeah,
Yes.
you ignoramus.
In the fall of 2008, the decision of whether to order the Game of Thrones pilot was hanging over the network. Lombardo went to his gym, the Equinox in West Hollywood, as it so happened, Weiss went to the same gym. And I see Dan on one of the bicycles. He was reading this dog-eared copy of the first book, and it had underscores and yellow highlights on the pages. He didn't know I saw him, and I thought, we're going to figure this out. These guys breathe this show in a way that doesn't happen all the time. I found that little window into Dan in that quiet moment, and this is what he was doing in his free time. It was such an acknowledgement of everything I suspected about those guys, and it made me determined to figure this thing out. Okay, that was...
At least Weiss was like into it, but Benioff is his boss essentially.
Whoa, wait a minute. Oh, I think we need to clear some phrases there.
Oh?
What do you mean by into it?
Ooh, yeah. What do you... I mean...
Was
Richard...
into the books.
Yeah. Richard...
Plepler.
Yeah, okay. You could see that they were breathing this. There's a feeling when great artists are talking about their passion and are immersed in a subject. It's the same feeling you get when the Wire creator David Simon pitches something, or the Armando
Iannucci
pitched Veep, or Mike Judge pitched Silicon Valley. I just had that feeling about them.
You're not admitting that you know his daddy and that you're best buddies, and that's what probably his dad put in a good word for him, because how else could he get into this?
Yeah. In November, Benioff and Weiss got the news they'd been waiting 3 years to hear. HBO had agreed to greenlight a pilot for Game of Thrones. The duo was relieved and elated, but before they could celebrate, they wanted to make sure of one last thing. Gina Ballin. David and Dan told me, we can't have you guys come back to us later and say we can't kill the lead character because suddenly you really like him. So, when we got the okay to make the pilot, I remember running into Mike and barging and going, just double checking. We're killing the lead and there's dragons.
And that's where we will conclude for the day. Thoughts, everybody. It's clear that these men are... These men, like, just from this, they seem like con artists.
Not only are they con artists, but they're absolute fucking idiots.
Yeah.
And yes, I dropped the F-bomb on purpose.
Yeah, there's also another account. Let me pull up that other account. Let me see. Let me see.
Yes,
Yeah.
nepotism is bad.
Yes, it is bad. It
Yes.
has always been bad, and it will always be bad.
It's what happens when a mother, father, or older sibling that has connections gets a job for someone who may or may not be qualified. If they're qualified, then
They would get it on their
everybody
own.
involved got lucky. And the person in question is worth their weight in...
Ooh, let me get the moment where he said where the HBO execs
Ooh, okay.
or at least let me see. Let me see, and come on, baby buffer.
Chapter 32.
Buffering.
And now the watch has ended. Fans were booing. That wasn't good. Game of Thrones cast members waited anxiously backstage at Comic-Con in San Diego, preparing to step in front of 6,000 people and celebrate the show's final season. The show's last episode had aired just 2 months earlier. HBO had scheduled a final Thrones Comic-Con panel for the San Diego Convention Center's massive Hall H, and tapped an unsuspecting journalist,
Jesus,
me,
is he
to
the
serve as
text-to-speech
moderator.
device?
In the weeks leading up to the event, fans upset with the final season had circulated posts on social media, gleefully detailing creative plans to disrupt the panel with protests in the ballroom. Aware of the threats, a Comic-Con official took the unusual step of going on stage before the panel started to remind the audience that it was in the spirit of the convention to always express support for shows regardless of how fans might feel about them.
And yet,
James Hibbard has been a mouthpiece for Benioff and Weiss for the past decade. Their parent company owns his parent company. He kept this fixed smile via his car salesman all of CDCC 2019. 80 claims of coke. Game of Thrones showrunners Benioff and Weiss dropped out of the final God San Diego Comic-Con panel the day before the convention. For those cast members who did show, moderator James Hibbard took no audience Q&A and has been accused that he only asked the pre-scripted questions. If it includes coherent plot descriptors.
what are you doing?
Well, how do you think
Sorry.
Brand has ruled so far?
Sorry.
Anything that you think he's accomplished during his first couple months in office?
I can't imagine it's a barrel of laughs in Westeros at the moment.
How do you imagine that Bran Stark's first couple months in office have gone? What has he accomplished so far?
I mean, I can't imagine his government is a barrel of laughs.
That's fine.
Not today, you second.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
The whole thing is pre-rehearsed and pre-scripted, and it's like 7 minutes of it, and it's just wow, just everything. I hate you so much. What is? Let's see. Where is that moment where the Comic-Con dude comes out? It's here's a little thing from the people. Let's see.
It's always one.
All I've heard is that this panel was really awkward.
It was just a little weird. So to kind of give some context, Game of Thrones has been a huge panel at Comic-Con every year, but every year they come, right? And there's another season that come, and everyone's like, talk about the other season. They're like, we just want to talk about the last season. They did a surprise Hall H panel this year. They're like, hey, we're coming. We're going to talk about the final season of Game of Thrones. And everyone obviously was a little divisive. The original announcement had the showrunners, David and Dan, the director, Miguel Sapochnik, and a couple other cast members, in addition to everyone who showed up. And then the day or so before the panel actually happened, the showrunners, a couple cast members, and the director dropped out. And it was largely in response to kind of the fan reaction online and negativity around this season, we'll say, and how people were kind of like, oh my God, the showrunners are showing their faces after they were kind of treated as enemy number 1 and number 2 around the divisive final season of Game of Thrones. So you were in the panel.
I was. Yeah.
It was a little weird by the time after all of that, everyone finally walks out on stage.
Well, it was very weird because the show started off with the director of programming for Comic-Con coming out and being like, remember to be nice, everyone. We all love and respect each other. Don't be mean, basically.
Have you ever heard that intro before?
I don't think I have. I don't think there's ever been a
I mean, it's like,
yeah, it was
you expect people to be angry, but, you don't. Everybody knows to be respectful at these places, which is why such a speech has never ever been needed.
They have the right to boo. They don't have the right to throw. They don't have the right to throw rotten vegetables.
Yeah, even though we probably might want to, we don't, because we have more respect for them than that.
Well, we don't have respect for them. We just don't want to give them ammo.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Count Nick Brown the manor for now. Nepotism is bad, but nepotism is great.
The name is a meme. Just accept it. Embrace the meme, Neph.
We do not like nepotism, but we do like Neph autism.
I was certainly wise to make that joke.
I can make that joke.
And I don't mind it.
Well, you are our token female, and we love you very much, Neph.
I love you 3000. Please love me back.
Yeah.
Good
bloodshed.
dog.
No blood, fortunately, but there was also like not this kind of antagonism around a panel prior to it happening in a show that's very
And the
much
audience was vocal and were like booing in certain parts.
They were.
It wasn't like loud boos, but there were certain moments, especially when they were talking about the end.
little like a boo earns kind of thing.
Yeah,
Someone in the back, like
A boo.
I was saying spoon,
This meme will make sense to people who understand wrestling. It's Roman Reigns' theme, and everybody immediately boos because Roman Reigns is the Rey Skywalker of the WWE.
Oh no!
It's just accept it.
Exactly. Some stuff for like.
But it's like booing is okay.
Oh, Jamie shouldn't have ended up with Brienne. You know, like all of this. It was
Yeah, because it's verbal. It's just like voicing your displeasure in a like relatively like coherent fashion.
It's like when we were talking about the Star Wars sequels and we just boo at it because we don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's
awkward, and the weirdest part was that the cast, obviously they love the show, they're in it the way that we aren't, and you know, we all respect the cast members so much and everything.
And I think the fans love the cast
Exactly.
too. So,
but Conleth Hill especially kind of took the who plays Varys took the stance that
Aggressive typing
there was
from
no real
Drake.
backlash.
And it's not the cast they're booing; it's the
The
writing.
exact phrase was, I think, a media-led hate campaign.
But I want to start with something that I consider to be somewhat controversial, and this is beyond the fact that showrunners D&D decided at the very last minute not to come. They had to actually come on stage before the panel began and say something along the lines of, hey, fandom is for everybody, and we all have different opinions, and everyone's opinion is valuable. But let's remember not to be mean, even if you disagree with certain directions.
And this
that
was
shows
not
might go
needed.
in. He wasn't mentioning Game of Thrones specifically, but it was a very veiled threat to the people in the crowd of, be nice. You know, we know they're coming off of a controversial season, but if you get a chance to ask questions, let's try to keep it
Which
civil.
they did.
Each other's idiosyncrasies, and even if we disagree sometimes, we all
And
do
they're
love
laughing
these-
at that.
we do love
They're
the
laughing
content
at that
that is
because
brought
they know
to
it's not
us, and we
needed.
do love the shows and the movies and everything that's brought to us, and we want that to continue. We want more of this content because we love it. So just keep that in mind, and just remember, you know, just remember this is a place where everyone is accepted and feels welcome and is at home. So,
Okay, they made this
please, thank you.
Comic-Con a safe place. That's what they did.
yeah.
It's like, you don't need to say this stuff because we know this stuff. And while we may ask heated and hard questions, we would never actually do anything to harm the people on that panel.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? Who's familiar with the Warhammer is for everyone controversy?
Oh, good lord.
That's basically this. It's a saying that did not need to be said, but by saying it, it is inherently exclusive.
Oh, and here's the second one, like them describing their process.
Yeah, oh god.
or at least their work experience. Come on, pause for me, baby.
We went into it with no experience in television whatsoever,
and you can
And
hear
you
it.
came out with nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear it.
The first year, I mean, still make mistakes every year, but I think
You make
hopefully
the same mistakes.
improving things. But we just didn't have any production experience, so we came in kind of knowing how we wanted to write it, but not knowing anything about the casting process, the editing process, working with visual effects, working with production design,
You
all
know
that stuff that
anything.
you need to know.
You
And
didn't
it's
know
been, a steep
anything,
learning
and
curve.
you didn't learn anything either.
I need to
We'd never
clip
produced anything
it.
for television before. We never produced anything for film or internet or anything.
You
We'd written
need
before, but we
to
never
clip
produced. So
what?
when we went to George, probably
I
it
need
was
to
kind
clip
of like,
this whole
it was
thing.
Probably like that bluff
Oh.
where you
Clip everything.
mistakenly think you have a straight and
for
you
this-
actually don't. But we were so confident that I think we convinced
Yeah.
George that, well, these guys seem like they really know what they're doing.
I said, I want it done. I want a faithful adaptation of the books. And they said, that's what we want to do.
Yep. I need to clip
Liars.
that just as the. I need to clip that as a. I need to clip that as just like a reaction to show whenever just like this book or anything else makes a comment of they have no experience. They have admitted this from their own mouths. Yeah.
Yep.
They need to find the white slavers clip.
Oh, and I need to. Yeah.
Let me find it right quick. George Lucas.
White slavers?
Yeah, it's,
No, white slavers is a Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
But it's so applicable to all this.
Yeah, it is. It's completely applicable to this.
Yep. Well, thank you. Yeah, they want it to be worse. Yeah, they did.
okay, I got the link. I'm gonna
As time
send
went
it.
on.
Here, I'll put it in the private chat.
Okay. Well, just yeah. Well, this is going to go away as soon as the chat is gone. So probably just put it in our group chat. That's probably a better place to put it. But anyway, thank you all for coming. I think this went relatively well. Us being able to kind of rotate through reading. I think definitely less tiring on me, since otherwise my voice is just absolutely destroyed by the time I'm finished reading Frame Monsters, because nobody is. You can't even find a friggin'
PDF.
pirate. You can't find a PDF online because nobody wants this garbage.
It's as if they're,
Unfortunately.
it's as if they're smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Well, anyway, thank you all for coming. I think this went pretty well. We'll finish Fairy Monsters Chapter 3 next week. Or we could finish it this Wednesday. I don't know if we have actually there is a video that I want to do this week.
Okay, what is it?
Oh, it's Star Wars is sexist.
Star Wars is not sexist. We do it. We do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
As your turban, I please beg of you to put me out my misery.
Yeah. I will euthanize you if that helps. I have ice, so I have ice, which could probably just strike your head off with one blow. I just need to sharpen the darn thing.
I'd rather prefer to die in my sleep than knowing that my head's been chopped off.
Yeah.
A whole body rather than the missing one.
Well, anyway, thank you all for coming, and one last thing.
Okay, we're going.
Bye,